And Kathleen, do you want to read the opening remark? Oh, you're muted.
I would love to. I'm having trouble
trying to find it.
for some reason. I have it starred, but it's avoiding detection. So, apologies.
Marc, do we need to do that if we have no members of the public present?
Do what specifically?
Read the disclaimer from the city.
About public comment?
Yes.
Only if you have somebody that wants to comment.
Okay, I found it.
Okay.
If we still would like to read it.
I don't see a need. I mean, we have no members of the public present tonight, and if they come late, they're not going to hear it anyway. So, with that, we'll move on. It won't do them any good to see it in the recording. So I think I'll put the minutes off for a minute, and Marc will let you go first to do the city. Are you chewing?
Well, feel free to do the minutes. I've got about almost an hour.
Okay, it may take a little while because I'm going to rant. And I apologize in advance.
I love a good rant.
Okay. First of all, did anybody else find anything in the minutes that needs correcting or had questions about? Anything at all in the minutes? Okay, well, I have an issue with something in the minutes. And Kristin, you reported this correctly, although very briefly. So it is not that you got it wrong, it's that what we were told was wrong. And when the staff member Carson presented about the study or the Safe Child policy at our meeting last month, she said the reason that they were reviewing that policy was because it had been enacted with no patron input and diverse points of view, or points of view from diverse populations were not considered. That is incorrect. That is our job. We are patrons. We were selected by the mayor and council to be representative of patrons, and we enact policies. That is exactly our job. That was an act of floxinoxynilipilification, and I was pretty offended by that. Hello, that helps. I think, you know, I chose not to be confrontational about it last month, but it was an issue. And, you know, I'm not going to be here next year, and I do want the board to not feel diminished. I hope going forward you will appreciate your value. And you know, we're not a board that has a tremendous amount of authority. This is just one area where we do. And that was a false premise. It's perfectly okay that we're reviewing policy. And I just want to say one more thing about it, and I'll finish my rant. And that is, I noticed the policy was most recently revised in 2015, which was the year before I joined the board. And so I know everybody who was on that board that year. It's a very impressive group of people, very intelligent, thoughtful, a very diverse group. And I think very importantly for this particular policy, the majority of them were parents. And I can't imagine that they did not give that policy very thorough consideration before revising it at that time. Okay, end of rant. Glenn, I apologize. I want to give you the option of removing the premise for revising the policy from the minutes. Otherwise, I would like the minutes corrected to show that we were given this information.
I'm sorry, John, can you repeat what you said? You trailed off at the end. I couldn't quite make out what you were saying.
I think I want to give you the option of reviewing the premise for revising that policy from the minutes. So where Kristin has it in that it was revised for that reason, or that the staff wanted to revise it for that reason, we can take that out. I'm perfectly okay with that. We do not have to embarrass anyone. Otherwise, I would like the record correct.
Well, if I may, John, I'd like to respond to your comment, and then after the board hears my comment, I would be interested in hearing whether or not the board is still interested in removing that item from the record. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay. So if I understood you correctly, your comment was essentially that you felt personally slighted because the stated reason for the review of the revision to the policy was that there hadn't been sufficient public input. Is that correct?
The word used was no patron input was the exact phrase. And I can't remember her exact wording about diversity, but she mentioned that as well.
Okay, so that said, I just want to clarify what the staff member meant by that. And in no way did the staff or the library intend any slight to this board. When we all understand that you are all volunteers, many of you are also patrons of the library, users of the library. We appreciate that, we understand that, and we're grateful for that. That said, what we mean when we make a statement like no patron input, by that we mean going out to the larger user community. And we understand that as part of the process, in addition to having all of our policies reviewed by this board, which is very important to us as an organization, because you are representatives of the community, it's also equally important for us to go out to the larger community to get their input and helping us to understand the needs of the community to formulate the policies that we bring before this board. So in no way were we trying to state that or diminish the significance and importance of the role of this board, but rather just a recognition of the fact that there is also a larger community of patrons that we serve, and it's critical to get their input and understand what are their needs prior to formulating the policy before bringing it to this board.
I wasn't suggesting, and let me correct that if anybody else got that misimpression. I certainly do not think there was any malicious intent. I think it was done out of ignorance.
So that said, John, if you'd like to move, I don't know what the correct procedure is, but if it's to move that item be struck from the record of the minutes and the board wishes to vote on it, I believe that that's the board's prerogative to do so.
John, which line of the minutes are you talking about? All I'm seeing is that it was reviewed with an equity lens and went over the subject of changes to the policy. So I don't see the minutes referring to anything about patron input.
It was definitely just the brief mention.
Yeah.
But I don't think that should be either. As I said, I was willing to give Glenn the option of removing that. But I still feel like
in the minutes
that did already happen.
What change would you want to the minutes? I don't see it mentioned in the minutes.
I'd like to take that out. I would just like to not state any specific reason for reviewing the policy at this time. It's not something we routinely have in the minutes unless there's some obvious change in something that predicates a need to revise a policy. So yeah, I'd just like to leave that phrase out.
Brad, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Try to unmute. John, which exact phrase are you talking about? Because you said there's a paragraph in there. I saw it.
Yeah, I have to pull it up. I think Andrew had it accurately there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it says we're reviewed with an equity lens, went over the subsequent changes to policy. The goal was more welcoming document where child safety is still the priority. The changes have been presented to the Incident Response Committee and the city attorney.
Yeah, that's the sentence I'm talking about. And so I would just like that clause taken out. So Carson Michelle reviewed how the safe or
Reviewed how the safe child policy was reviewed or reviewed. Yeah, I guess it's double reviewed.
that doesn't
with an
make any
equity
sense
lens.
anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Presented subsequent proposed changes to the policy. Carson Michelle presented proposed changes to the Safe Child Policy is what it should say.
John,
Oh.
is that what you're proposing the minutes say?
Yes.
So are you proposing that as a motion then for the board to consider?
Well, it's not a
change?
motion. Somebody will make a motion to approve the minutes as amended. If that's what everybody decides to do, we certainly can discuss.
So
this
if the
first.
board decides to approve or accept your suggested changes, someone would need to make a motion to approve the minutes as you amended them. Is that correct?
Which is what happens almost every month anyway.
I'm just from a parliamentary procedure
Yes.
standpoint, I'm just confirming that that would be the procedure. So you
Yes.
suggested a change to the minutes. Now we're waiting for another member of this board to move to approve the minutes as amended by John.
Well, certainly people can comment first if they'd like.
So are there any comments or discussion about John's proposed changes to the minutes?
Sorry about, but I just want to be clear on it. Are we striking that whole paragraph and replacing it with one sentence that she presented proposed changes to the policy?
No,
Or
no, we're just shortening that sentence.
the first sentence, I would say propose with an equity lens, and went over subsequent proposed changes maybe. So she presented proposed subsequent change or proposed changes to the,
I'll reread the paragraph.
yeah.
Safe Child Policy, Carson Michelle, Community Engagement and Senior Librarian. Carson Michelle presented proposed changes to the policy. The goal was, et cetera. The rest of that is fine.
I think I'm okay with that. I didn't really see an issue with it the other way. I mean, I understand that the board has the ultimate yes, no, rulemaking authority, but okay. I don't have an issue with it.
Any other comments? Kathleen?
John, I see your point, and I see your points with how it may have been presented to the board last month. I don't think that the minutes reflect that intention. The way that I read the minutes just seems okay with me and to anyone who's reading them from the public, because it doesn't say anything about how the board has reviewed this in the past. I think that it's clear from the minutes that it's just trying to make sure that it's a diverse and equitable and toward child safety.
Okay. Any other comments?
I would just say that I think to add the word proposed is probably a good change, since it is proposed rather than being final changes, but I'm kind of leaning more with Kathleen that, I mean, because when I read it, I didn't see an issue with it either, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, my issue isn't honestly so much with what's said in the minutes as what happened. And again, no malicious intent. It was done out of ignorance, but it was still, I put in an awful lot of hours over the last 6 years, and you know, I just felt pretty worthless after that. So, you know, I think the record can either reflect what happened, or we shorten it so that we're in essence covering it up, which is okay with me. But I guess what we need to do to move on at this point is maybe have competing motions to approve the minutes as written or as amended.
Well, I would move to approve them as written with the insertion of the word proposed before subsequent changes.
Okay, and anyone else?
I'll second Brad's motion.
Okay, I don't know if I can make a move to approve the minutes or not. I guess I can.
I think we vote on that motion, and then if it's denied, then you carry on to a second motion.
Okay,
Because I don't see any. I guess you could do an A/B motion, but I think we're spending a lot of time on this. But if it has to be done, then it has to be done. So that's okay.
all right, well then I'm probably not going to get a second, it sounds like, but I will move to amend the minutes as I propose. Can I get a second?
John, I'll second that.
Okay. So we have two motions, and we'll use Brad's idea of A or B, A being Brad's motion to make the single change and mine to take a little more out. So all in favor of Brad's motion, say aye. Raise your hand, please. So 3, and all in favor of my motion for the stronger. 3 and 2. Kathleen, did you vote?
I abstain.
You did, okay. Okay, then I guess, I'm not sure, do we need a majority of members or?
I think so.
Yeah. Well,
A majority
or
of those
some-
here. We need a majority of those here. So we have almost everybody here, right?
yeah, you need a majority of who's here. We already have a quorum.
Okay,
Actually, the rule is a majority of those present and voting. Abstentions don't count.
Thanks for that clarification.
okay. So in that case, Brad's motion passes 3-2. And we'll move on to the city council report.
Okay. First of all, with reference to something that was in the minutes, I noted that because I missed the meeting last time, Glenn talked about the ARPA funding allocations. And yes, we have gone through that process in the context of our supplemental budget discussions. And we have set up allocations for all of the first tranche, the 50% of the ARPA funds, some of which was actually allocated back during our previous budget process in May. But we've identified destinations for most of the rest of the first tranche, and a portion of the tranche we're expecting to receive in, I believe, April or May of next year. But there's still a significant amount of money in that second tranche that has not been allocated to any program or project as yet. And during the process that the staff is going through right now of developing the first initial stages of next year's budget, some of those recommendations will be put together by the city manager's office and brought forward to the council for discussions along the way, and then ultimately to the budget committee and council. So there is still opportunity for projects or programs to qualify for funding, for ARPA funding, assuming that they meet the federal criteria. And we'll be having some discussions at council about that over the course of the next 2 or 3 months. Then this coming Tuesday night is our last meeting of calendar year 2021, which we'll call COVID year 2. Sorry. It's been a weird couple of years for everybody trying to work our way through this. But we slowly but surely we're getting there. And because we only have 2 meetings in December, they're going to be fairly packed with lots of good stuff. Probably the main thing that people here might find interesting is, at least at our December 14th meeting, next Tuesday night, there will be an update on work being done right now on the climate action plan. There's going to be more, but we have established a climate action plan task force, and I think we'll be hearing a little bit about how that committee has been constituted and what initial work it thinks it's going to take on. And then we're going to have an update from our public works team on the capital improvement program. There were a number of changes made to the capital improvement program schedule, particularly in the water projects area, between the passage of the CIP with the May budget process and the supplemental budget meeting in November. So 6 months went by, and during that time, a whole bunch of stuff changed. So we're going to get an update on where things stand, plus the COVID business and sort of related subject that it's harder to find people to do projects. Consultants and contractors and contracting firms are all swamped with orders for business, and so it's a little harder to find people. So a number of things have been subjected to schedule problems. So we anticipate that in that update, we're going to get a bunch of news that we would have to mostly call bad news, that things are going to take longer than we had expected. And sometimes bids come in higher because of various types of inflation for materials and labor costs in a lot of the projects that we're up to. Other than that, mostly a number of sort of miscellaneous things. Oh, well, of course, there's one that's always popular in our last meeting of the year, which is the appointment of board and commission members. And so once the agenda is published, and that should be sometime tomorrow, late afternoon, perhaps Friday morning, feel free to take a look at the council agenda, and you will see in there, it's in the consent agenda. Sometimes we pull it off consent for discussion, but it's in the consent agenda, and it's the recommendations from the mayor and staff as to who should be appointed to vacant or open positions in the various boards and commissions. And as we know, there are going to be 1 or 2 changes here in the library advisory board for next year. So y'all might want to take a look at that when it's published, and we will perhaps have a discussion about it on Tuesday, or perhaps it'll just go by without comment. But that's pretty much what we've got going on. Then next year we get back into business on January 4th. And there's just a bunch of stuff to catch up on that, 3 weeks go by, there's always something that piles up. We'll be selecting a new council president. And then we get into both two big things that happen in the first half of the year. One is budget season, and the other is May elections. So coming soon to a ballot near you in May of 2022, there will be elections. And I know, I can guarantee you, somebody will be running for my seat. I am term limited per our new charter. I'm not unhappy about that. I'm 13 years into this now, and I'm ready to move along. But I get to continue until the end of 2022. But in May of 2022, the election for my seat will be up. Plus, there are 2 other seats. And possibly yet another one. We'll see. So that's pretty much the updates. And if anybody has any questions about council business or city business, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Well, I guess this is as good a time as any to ask, since you mentioned the appointments. It's an issue for us at the moment because this is normally the meeting where we elect our officers for next year. And we can't really do that if we don't know who's on the board. Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, make
I
your
mean-
election of officers at your meeting in January. Or you just find out who is not leaving the board and decide to choose from among those people.
John, if I
Glenn?
may interject, we actually did receive direction from the manager of the city's boards and commissions in that we have 2 members who are current alternates to this board who have been recommended by the mayor and the staff to the city council for approval. According to the manager of the city's boards and commissions, those individuals are eligible for nomination during today's meeting, according to the bylaws, provided that they are nominated by a full board member. So we do have a path forward. It's in keeping with this board's bylaws, and in keeping with those bylaws, we will also be holding an election, nomination and election for the new chair and vice chair later on in this meeting. So just wanted to let everyone know.
So definitely follow your bylaws.
Well, they're not completely clear in this case, but we'll.
Well, what I can offer you is Glenn is completely right. The only thing that Glenn can't be certain of is whether the recommended appointments to the Library Advisory Board will actually pass at the council meeting on Tuesday night. I can't think of a time in my 13 years when there has been a disagreement about a Library Advisory Board appointment. So I think the chances of the recommendations going through without comment are very, very high.
Okay. We'll leave that at that for the moment. Glenn, do you have news of the foundation for us?
I do, John, thank you. The foundation has 2 prospective new board members, thanks to some recruitment efforts from our new volunteer program coordinator. They both attended the foundation board meeting on Monday of this week and will hopefully be voted in by that board during their January meeting, and both of whom will be, I believe, very good additions to the board. In addition, they both have indicated their interest in assisting the board with some fundraising efforts in various capacities. One has a background in grant writing, and the other has experience in events planning for the Junior League of both New York City and also for the city of Portland. And one of the 2 is currently working on a project to mine the foundation's donor database to identify individuals who have given considerable or substantial sums of money over the past several years for some additional targeted fundraising efforts, the goal of which would be to raise additional funds for the build out of additional portions of the library 2018 space plan. An example of which was the ribbon cutting ceremony we held earlier this afternoon, at which 2 members of this board were able to attend. Thank you very much. Which represented the first portion of the 2018 space plan that was completed and made available to the public.
Good. And I forgot to ask if anybody had any questions for Councilor Soucie or for Glenn regarding the foundation board report. We can take both of those, either of those at this point. Andrew?
Is there also infrastructure money coming in for, I don't know if that would qualify for the library or anything like that.
Most likely not, but in any case, I don't believe the infrastructure bill has yet passed Congress. And so, number one, we're not certain whether there will be any money. And number two, nobody is absolutely certain what's in the bill yet. So please continue to read the New York Post or the New York Times or the Washington Post or the New York Times or something like that to find out the latest on the wrangling in Congress.
Okay, I guess I got those confused. All right, thank you.
Yeah, the House passed the bill, Andrew, but the Senate has not yet taken action.
Okay, my misunderstanding.
And then should they pass something, then they would have to reconcile the differences between them. So it may be a while. Kathleen, new Friends of the Library report?
Absolutely. Let me go through. I took lots of notes last time. Glenn went through he attended the meeting last month and went through a very long presentation for the Friends, which was very well received about the reorganization and the space planning initiative and the priorities for the library, which was actually very helpful for me. Also, it's probably something that you went through with this board last month that I missed. I got ill in the middle of the meeting and had to leave quickly. So I did get that, which I appreciate. And also, so the actual Friends board news, there's news about there's an employment audit that they're working through. The operational statistics, everything looked really good. There's the retail operation had its best month all year, so that was looking up. Amazon sales perked up from a slump. They were looking forward to more book sales and branch library sales, and so there's a lot of excitement and optimism about their retail sale operations that are looking or trending upwards. They are looking into how to celebrate their 20 years as the new Friends of the Beaverton City Library or the Book Corner. They are looking into who's cleaning the roof, which seems like a trivial kind of thing, but it actually isn't, because the building is owned by the city and they can't do it themselves, and to hire somebody else or who is actually responsible for cleaning the building. So there are still, after all of the drama surrounding the sale, the potential sale at the Book Corner, there are still questions about who is actually in charge of this operation and the building itself. They're looking into marketing. They're doing a website development. They were talking more about e-commerce. What is that going to look like? How is that going to play out? They have their grants that they were going for as part of a new revenue opportunity. Nothing new is happening there. They're not moving forward with new grants until something requiring funding comes up. So they already have some grant money that they are looking into what is actually needed. And they are also developing a list of what is the most useful for the Book Corner. Michelle had the library wish list, which included a setup for the YouTube team, a replacement microfilm reader printer, library on wheels, canvas bags, free little library painting supplies and prizes, which is a very cool thing that I didn't know would be on the library wish list. But so they are going to look over the request. The finance committee of the Friends are going to look over the requests, and they'll get back independently before their meeting next month. So they'll know which of those requests they're planning on funding. And does anybody have any questions?
A lot of stuff. And I want to add too, Glenn made a nice little speech this afternoon as part of the grand opening of the study rooms, and thanked the Friends for their contributions of the furniture, I believe, Glenn, and the whiteboard and the monitor, was it? There was one other thing.
No, the furniture and the whiteboards, John.
Just furniture and whiteboards. So that was very nice.
They are very pleased to be recognized.
Any questions for Kathleen? We'll move to the Teen Council report. Arvin.
I want to just wrap up. by saying that over the course of the year, I have so much to report because the Friends have been so diligent about splitting into these subcommittees and then attacking different facets of what they cover independently. So that has been just really, I think, very helpful for them to have a finance subcommittee and to have a marketing subcommittee. And so that's something that they've done very well by splitting into these smaller committees that do the work and then return to the board the next month. So I'm not sure if that's anything that this board would need to do or that would be helpful for us at any point, but it's something that they've done very successfully.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, and I'm so glad you did, because I would have totally forgotten this tonight, even though I thought of it at some point during the last month, but I don't have enough RAM and the old stuff gets pushed out by the new stuff. At the meeting you missed, Kathleen, where we had discussed your suggestion for making the vice chair be permanently a liaison to the Friends, I came up with a solution that we didn't pass a measure on, a motion of any sort, wasn't necessary, but the board was very much in favor of, which was setting up subcommittees, because our bylaws already allow us to do that. And so I suggested as a solution, since nobody stepped forward to second your motion, that we could have a committee handle this responsibility and possibly other responsibilities, including foundation liaison, perhaps budget committee liaison, where people would be attending other meetings, but 1, 2, 3 a year instead of having to do it every month, because it would be divided into committees. So I'm very glad you brought that up. It's something that I hope you'll maybe discuss and enact at your January meeting.
I think a budget committee meeting would be a phenomenal, a liaison for the budget committee would be a phenomenal idea.
I think so. It would definitely help, and I hope it gets explored. Arvin,
I just wanted to add, I think that's a good idea too. That's it.
I have to congratulate you again on the Teen Art Show. It was terrific this year, and I was really impressed by the number of entries. And one of the things that I noticed in the past was a bunch of similar things that obviously came from a class assignment. And you didn't have any of those this year because of the unusual circumstances. So to have as many entries as you did was really impressive. And as was so much of the artwork, just amazing. I just wish I could do something like that. But on to your report.
Yeah, it was great to get back to at least an in-person art event too last year. So just a few things to touch on. Mainly, we're thinking about doing like a kids craft fair. The idea is kind of being fished around. We're going through different meetings and seeing what we can do. Some example ideas we have is like rock painting, necklace creation, DIY flowers, and we don't know the age range exactly yet, but we'll kind of narrow it down and then set an idea set in stone. And I think we're planning for like an early spring event. Hopefully we can do more things, especially COVID can kind of wind down. We have a podcast update. We're recording one podcast in a week or so, and that should be going through with more like the winter season. We recorded one about a month ago, more during like the fall season, talking about teen life during both those times. And then for 2 different events, we're doing like winter lights. TLC will be participating in that, and they'll be taking some roles. And then we're participating in general TLC events and events around the library, especially during the holidays. And yeah, pretty short one. Yeah, that's it.
Anything else? As if you needed more.
Oh, that's it.
Any questions for Arvin? Okay, we will move on to the elections. And our bylaws say that the director runs the election. So Glenn, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. And good evening, everyone, once again. Just want to reference the bylaws that John mentioned. That's article excuse me, just give me a moment here. Here we are.
Or
Under Article 4, officers, paragraph 4 states election of officers. At the last board meeting of the calendar year, which is this meeting, board members shall elect officers. Nominations shall come from board members, which excludes, my understanding of that is that it would exclude alternate members, and that same members who have voting rights would have the ability to nominate the chair and the vice chair. The officers shall be elected in the order of chair and then vice chair. In the event of a tie vote, one revote shall take place among the tied vote receivers. In the event of a second tie, the office shall be decided by a flip of a coin. And then finally, the city staff liaison, which is currently myself, shall administer the election process at the meeting. So with that, I would like, first of all, before we proceed with the nominations, I'd like to ask if there are any questions from members of the board before we proceed with the actual nomination and election process.
No,
Kathleen?
no real questions, but and I'm sure that you'll go over this, but I am not eligible. I was not able to get my paperwork in time this year. And so just to get that out there. So I will vote, but I am not eligible to be nominated.
Okay, thank
Do you know for a fact that the mayor will not, because of your reason for not getting it in, will not allow you to continue?
I have spoken with Lanny Parr, and she encouraged me to continue going to meetings until the midterm elections can be filled. So I'll still be a part of the library board, but I will not be a voting member until those elections can happen.
Right. Thank you for mentioning that, Kathleen. So technically, Kathleen, if you choose to do so, we hope that you do, to continue attending meeting, you would be doing so as a member of the public.
Absolutely.
Until such time as the time for applying for the midterm election process or period rather begins. And then we hope that you will rejoin us at that time as a full member of the board.
Absolutely. I hope to do so this year.
This would be a good time to point out we currently have 3 openings. So both John and Brad have are terming out. They have filled their 2 full terms, and so they're no longer eligible to reapply for membership of this board. Kathleen has mentioned her application did not come in on time, so that is the 3rd opening. We currently have 2 applicants, and both of our I'm proud to say they are both our alternate members, Cathy Wasnick and Kathleen Perry, who unfortunately is not with us tonight. They are both eligible to be nominated for full board members, subject, as Councilor Soucie pointed out, to approval by the City Council next week. That said, nominations for board members, according to the bylaws, do need to be made by full board members, as well as the vote on the nominated chair and vice chair also needs to be done by full board members. Any questions about the process? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Do we
yeah.
have an odd number of full board members?
Do we have an odd number of board members?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We currently
Not
have.
present.
Sorry, John?
We have 6 present, so we have an even number.
Did you mean?
Then
tonight,
whenever it
Sarah?
is, yeah, because it will create a tie. It is.
Oh, there's a tiebreaker in the bylaws. You could revote or flip a coin.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to confirm whether if at first time itself we can get a vote.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we begin the nomination process? Okay, that said, in keeping with the bylaws, the first nomination will be for the chair. So I would like to open it up for nominations for the Library Advisory Board Chair, who would take office in January of 2022. And you may nominate yourself, but you have to be a full board member to do so. Kathleen.
I would like to nominate Andrew.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Sarah.
Okay. Andrew, I need to clarify. We actually have two Sarahs, one of whom is present, one of whom is not.
I'm nominating Sara Raj.
Sarah Raj. Very good. Thank you.
Apologies.
No, that's
You need
fine.
not be present to win.
Point well taken. Yes, we do have one other member of the board who is eligible for nomination, Sarah Larson, who is not present this evening. So thank you for mentioning that. My apologies for the oversight. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, hearing none. I just want to go back and check to see if we do a vote now or do we nomination. Officers shall be elected in the order of chair and then vice chair. So I'm going to interpret that to mean we do nominations followed by a vote,
Yes.
First for chair, and then we repeat this procedure for the vice chair. Okay, that said, in the past, when we met in person, I believe we had members of the board vote on paper and submit their votes via paper in that fashion. Now that we're doing it virtually, we could, one approach, if we wish to keep the process somewhat anonymous, is we can have request that all members present, whether they be board members or alternate members, cast their vote. This would, again, just be full board members casting their vote, but do so with your eyes closed. And I will tally your votes. I will keep my eyes open and I will tally your votes. Andrew, did you have a comment?
One option is to direct message you in the chat. That way everyone can keep their eyes open and you'll be able to see our vote.
That's an even better suggestion. Does everyone know how to do that? If you click on the bottom half of your screen, if you scroll over with your mouse, the chat option feature rather will come up. If you click on that, it'll open up a window on the right-hand side. On the bottom where it says to, there is a drop-down menu. The default is everyone. You could click on that arrow and then scroll through the list until you find my name. And then that way, highlight my name and you can send me a direct chat message. Will that work for everyone? Okay, very good. So that said, let's take a minute or two and please send me a direct chat message with your choice, with your vote for chair, either Andrew or Sara Raj.
Do we need the Jeopardy music for this?
Counselor, if you can carry a tune or not, feel free. Okay, we currently have, there we go, very good. We have 5 out of 6 board members who've cast their vote. We're just waiting for one more.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, very good. That said, all of the members who wish to vote have done so. And it's my duty to report back to this board that Andrew will be the chair of the Library Advisory Board beginning in January of 2022. So congratulations to Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you to both candidates for your willingness to serve in that capacity and for those members of the board who made their nominations. That said, I'd like to turn our attention to nominations for the second of the two offices, and that is a vice chair for the Library Advisory Board beginning in January of 2022. So open it up to nominations for vice chair.
I will nominate Sara Rajkumar. She's been on the board 5 years. I think she's earned the right to serve higher office at this point. She's a very active participant. She asks great questions. I think both Andrew and Sara are assets to the board, which made it very difficult for me to choose between them. But to have both as officers going forward would be a good thing. I was hoping that Kathleen would be able to continue on the board, but that not being possible, I think we've done well with the candidates we have.
Okay, thank you, John. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, hearing none. I believe we still need to go through the process of voting. So if you would please cast your vote again via a private chat message to me, if you would. And thank you to whoever is playing the background music. Okay, so far we have 3 members of the board have cast their vote. We're still waiting on 3 more.
Do I vote for myself or
You may.
do I nominate a different person?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I'm the nominated person. Will I vote for myself?
You're permitted to vote. Yes, absolutely. Just like a general election.
Thank you.
Every time I've run for council, I voted for myself.
I should hope so. Okay, Sarah, did you want to cast your vote? Okay, very good. Well, I'm happy to announce that by unanimous vote, Sara Raj is our new vice chair for the Library Advisory Board beginning in January 2022. So congratulations, Sara.
Thank
So
you.
thank you. That completes my duty and responsibility as the staff liaison to this group in conducting the nomination elections for our chair and vice chair for next year. With that, John, I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. And congratulations, Andrew and Sara. Honor well earned, and I trust that you handle the duties very well. If you
Sure, John.
need me, you can email me, and if you don't, I will be perfectly happy. Either way, I'm not going to interfere. I think we are not discussing the Safe Child Policy tonight because of lack of staff availability. So we'll move on to the director's report. Glenn.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. You're heading out, Marc?
Counselor.
Okay.
Have a great holiday,
Thank you for
everybody.
coming.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John. We do have some comment cards, so I want to be mindful of that and allow some time at the end for the board to review them. I believe there's a total of 4. Okay. First thing I want to mention is that the City of Beaverton Executive Team, which is the new name for the department heads team. So that group, the group of department directors, along with the city manager, held a retreat at the Cooper Mountain Nature Center on November 18th and 19th last month. And the agenda items included team building exercises, since that is a new group, particularly in the relationship with the new city manager, a new form of government. There's discussion of departmental projects along with collaboration opportunities. The retreat was facilitated by an external consultant, and it also, there was some discussion too about revenue forecasts for next fiscal year in the lead up to the budget process, which is a perfect segue to the an update on the budget. And by that, I mean the supplemental budget, which was discussed last month by the Budget Committee and the City Council, which is their who have the authority to approve the city's budget. And I'm happy to announce that 3 out of the 4 items that we had requested, that the library had requested as part of the supplemental budget process, were approved. And they were some additional funds for for some additional sit-stand desks, you know, those desks that have the ability to raise and lower depending on preference. Some additional funds to outfit the Mount Hood conference room, which is the second of 2 conference rooms in the library administrative office area with AV equipment, similar to that in the admin conference room, which is the room where the this board had been meeting prior to the pandemic. And then lastly, some funds to replace the existing fluorescent lighting with LED lights in the perimeter of the inside of the library, the main library, for improved efficiency and lighting. The one request that was not approved, which did not make it out of the internal budget review process, was funds for an additional half-time FTE outreach specialist, which would enable us to acquire the second library outreach vehicle, which the Library Foundation had agreed to purchase for us. We needed that individual literally to help us drive the bus and to deliver additional programs. So there is another supplemental budget period in the spring, as well as, of course, the budget process for next year. So we will have another opportunity or two to reapply for that funds for that position if we choose to go in that direction. In terms of personnel, and speaking of outreach, I'm pleased to say that we just hired a part-time outreach specialist specifically focused on adult outreach, which is a new position for us, something that we've never had before, to build capacity for our ability to provide outreach services to adult members of our community. So think, for example, of making visits, for example, to senior centers, assisted care centers, and other places where adult members of our community can be found, in delivering programs and other services to them. The individual who was hired has worked in the past at the Hillsbury Public Library before undertaking a career in engineering, and has now come back to the library sector and is very excited about joining the Beaverton Library team. She is also bilingual, English and Spanish, and will be working with Spanish-speaking members of our community as well as other groups. Moving on to facilities. As mentioned earlier in tonight's meeting, Earlier today, we held the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new study cubes, which went live as part of a soft rollout the middle of last month. And now what with the official grand opening of them, we're going to do a very strong promotional effort to publicize those spaces in a variety of channels and languages, and anticipate increased utilization and demand for those spaces. And in terms of our sustainability initiatives, which we're working with the city's sustainability division, as mentioned in the past to this board, we had undertaken two pilot projects, two light-saving pilot projects, the first of which was for to adjust the lighting schedule in the lobby of the building, and the second of which was to adjust the lighting schedule for the accent lights on the second floor for increased energy savings. Unfortunately, the first floor pilot had to be canceled due to the fact that the light switch on which the lobby lights were located also controlled lights in back of the circulation desk. And when they were off, it made it difficult for staff to see appropriately and to conduct their duties. So we had to revert back to the previous schedule for the lobby lighting, but the second floor library pilot did continue. It was completed, and now we have recently reached out to the city sustainability team to on the next steps, and also to pull together the results from the survey that they conducted amongst the members of the community and the staff before deciding on next steps. Andrew, I noticed that you have your hand up. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, about the study room, since you had a soft open for the past 2 weeks or so, have you had a lot of feedback, or how was the utilization, stuff like that? Anything from that perspective?
Yes, so in that amount of time, as of last week, I believe it was actually, we had 13 reservations for those spaces, which doesn't seem like a very high number, and it's not. But then again, we weren't doing any publicity of those spaces. So the fact that, and this all comes from people who were in the library and found out about them that way. So when you, in that light, it's actually a very good response, we think. And so those folks, they did get quite a bit of use for those folks who became aware of them in the library. And then we did receive one bit of feedback, which I'm not going to spoil the message, but I'll just say that we did receive a comment about the study cubes in a comment card, which will be read at the end of the meeting. So all the members of the board will be able to see what that comment was.
All right, thanks, Glenn.
And then, as mentioned during today's ribbon cutting ceremony, the study cubes were the first of the space plan projects to be completed and made available to the public. And by that, the understanding is that while it's the first space as part of the space plan to be made available to the public, it's actually not the first project associated with the space plan to be completed. And that was the makerspace, which converted an old computer classroom into a makerspace / do-it-yourself space, which was actually completed in March of 2020. But due to the pandemic, we have not been able to make that space available to the public, but which we hope to do in the spring of next year, now that we have hired our new public services supervisor, who's been tasked with developing the program for that space, and as well as the staffing and the hours of operation. The city's severe weather shelter opened on November 15th of this year, so just last month. And as hoped and anticipated, it has the opening of that space has resulted in a decrease in the number of individuals, houseless individuals who have been camping on or near the library grounds, now that there is additional space to accommodate them. So we're very grateful for that. And that also includes the space in the covered bike shelter across from Hall Boulevard, which until recently had been occupied by individuals who were camping in that space. But with the opening of the shelter, those individuals have found alternate shelter. And then around the Thanksgiving holiday, the city contracted to have the bike shelter cleaned. And then, so it is now available once again for members of the community who wish to use it as covered bike parking. And then moving on to programming, we made the announcement of the selection of this year's One Book, One Beaverton title, Cold Millions by Jess Walter, last month. And on November 13th, we began giving away free copies at both locations. And within a matter of days, we had distributed all 450 free copies to members of the public. I just having completed my copy of the book, I can attest to what an outstanding selection it is. And it is a real page turner. So if you haven't secured your own copy, I would encourage you to do so. And I've also learned that the author, whom will be, we hope, coming in person for the culminating program in the series, this year's One Book, One Beaverton series, is also an outstanding speaker in addition to an outstanding writer, and that is Jess Walter. So there are also other programs and events that are associated with that One Book, One Beaverton program that begin in January, culminating in the author event at the beginning of February. So we encourage members of this board to participate and hope you'll be able to attend one or more programs associated with that event. The Teen Art Show, as Arvin mentioned, referenced, did have an outstanding turnout. We had, I believe it was just north of 100 student participants and more than 125 submissions and more than 500 members of the public who attended the art show. So by all measures, it was a very successful program. So once again, congratulations to the Teen Library Council for another outstanding program. As I already mentioned, we were thrilled to be able to host that program again this year in person. We recently held a successful 4-part series on healthy relationships for adults in Spanish on consecutive Sundays last month here at the library, in conjunction with the Catholic Charities Intercultural Counseling Center. And we're also holding 2 programs in Spanish on financial literacy, the first of which was held on the 5th of this month, and the second of which will be held on the 12th. We also held a successful family resource fair back in October at the main library. And we had several dozen different provider organizations representing healthcare, wellness, education, recreation, housing, food, and energy assistance. The Teen Winter Photo Contest is currently ongoing through December 31st for grades 6 through 12. And then, and this is of course not meant to be an exhaustive list of our programs, but just a little Vorspice. Last mention, one more mention, we're starting a 7-week series on mindful meditation that actually began yesterday, called Attitudes of Mindfulness. And that will be held each week for 7 weeks. And then we've also scheduled to do some first aid, CPR, and AED training for library staff, which was originally scheduled for last month, I believe, that needed to be rescheduled due to lack of availability by the trainer, from what I understand. That will be made available to all library staff so that they can respond to medical emergencies on the part of the public as well as staff as needed. And then lastly, negotiations with the library cooperative on the intergovernmental agreement are ongoing at the policy group level, i.e. the director level, as well as the executive level. That said, as previously reported to this board, the library cooperative has agreed to maintain current funding levels through the current levy cycle, which is through the 25-26 fiscal year, and then starting next fiscal year to begin a robust process to look at the funding appropriation process using an equity lens. So with that, I conclude the director's report for the month, and be happy to entertain any additional questions on anything that was mentioned in the report, or for that matter, if there's anything else that is of interest to the board.
Okay, thank you for putting it that way, Glenn, because I have what I have to admit is a specious question, but you're a good person to ask. I heard you use the term houseless, which I noticed a lot of people using lately, as opposed to homeless. And I don't understand that, because somebody living in an apartment or a condo is houseless. So what is the motivation, I guess?
Yeah, thank you for the question, John. And my understanding of the difference between the terminology is that while someone might not have a house in which they live, or an apartment for that matter, wherever they happen to bed down for the night is considered their home. So it's an effort to recognize the fact that while each of us has a home, and they may look very different from one another, or what we call home, not everyone has a house that they call home, whether that's a house, a single family dwelling, or whether that's an apartment. That's my understanding. And if there's any other members of the board, or Arvin and or Kristin, if you have a different understanding of that, please feel free to add your voice to the conversation.
I had a question. Am I?
Yes, Brad, please.
Okay, yeah. Because we talked about this before, so I have some interest in that, but who's doing the mindful meditation? That's what caught my
That's a good
interest.
question. I wish I knew the name of the individual. Kristin, go offhand. If not, I will find out and report back. Okay, I will get back to the.
I'm just curious. I just checked out the calendar. It's not on there either. So
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll get back to the board on that. Any other questions, comments? Mei?
Yeah, regarding the One Book, One Beaverton, I would like to know if the library has an online version that is a e-book.
I'm fairly certain there is an ebook version of it, but I will double check, because I want to be 100% sure before I say for certain.
Okay,
I think it's available, because they told me to put a hold on the Libby to get that online book.
Okay.
But but you can also check once, but it's, to my knowledge, I think it's there.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, generally speaking, we try to make sure that it's available in multiple formats and languages. That's not always the case. Andrew, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I looked it up. There's 16 copies of it, but they're all out of the ebook.
Yeah, I can also add a comment, because it's only 450 books. and it is on the day or within few days you have to get it. As board member, we got it early, but I didn't request it early. I just wanted to start as a member. I found the book very late. I'm just going through that, but I got a book. I was putting on hold for everything, for online, for physical book, and for CD. So I got a physical book and CD currently. I think online is, I might get it in a week or in 2 days, I think.
Mhm.
I have a question on the financial literacy 101 that is done in Spanish. So it is,
Yes.
who is doing it? It's a third party or it is by the by the staff?
I believe it's in collaboration with another organization, but I don't know who that is, but I will find out and report back to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, we should move on. We have a couple more things to accomplish tonight. And it is December and people are particularly busy, so I'd like to try to end on time. Let's discuss the
One
comment
more
cards. I
to
hope everybody
add
had a
on.
chance to look at them. And if you couldn't decipher them, you weren't the only one. Couple with very
I need a
challenging
minute here.
handwriting.
John, I
Can you
think
hear me?
Sarah would like to say something.
Yeah,
Yes.
I need a minute. Sorry for missing the ribbon cutting today. Even though I put it in my calendar and I didn't put it in my work calendar.
Oh,
But
that's
I was
great.
happy to learn that it went well. And I want to take a minute to thank Kristin for doing the kind words for the library staff. It's a very thoughtfulness, even though I have been here for 5 years and appreciating every work of the staff. They are doing exceptional work, and during COVID, it was extraordinary effort for their. They didn't I don't know what to say. Like they didn't mind coming into the library and doing the work of standing in the driveway during the hot weather too. So supporting the members, it was a great one. Thank you for your thoughtfulness.
Thank you so much. And I have not shared that yet with staff. So if any other members want to get me a paragraph or a sentence, please do. And I will make sure it is shared with staff by the end of the year. So I really appreciate it. I get to hear what y'all say about staff. So I was just encouraged. I just wanted to encourage y'all to let other staff know. So thank you, Sarah, for bringing that up. So if you do have something, please email me and I will make sure staff gets it.
I didn't make like a presentation or something, but just I sent the words.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. I'll handle all of that. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, on to the comment cards. Did everybody have a chance to read them or attempt to? Anybody have anything you wanted to comment on? I know Glenn referred to one in particular. Glenn, did you want to say something about that?
Yes, thank you, John. Let's see. Here it is. I believe it's the third card, which states as follows. The meeting study room number 3 is terribly soundproofed. The ceiling is open, which lets the sound travel out of the room. I think adding a soundproof something.
Barrier.
Barrier, thank you, makes a lot of sense to keep sound in. Also, the addition of something is redundant. It's a semi-private room.
It's basically to keep the mask.
Okay.
Oh, keep the mask on is redundant. Semi-private room and should be able to speak without a mask, especially during a Zoom meeting. I think some ceiling, no, something insulation,
Noise canceling.
noise canceling insulation would improve the room. Okay, so I just want to address that point. And that is the actual term that we're using to refer to those spaces is study cubes. And that's by intent, because they are not rooms. And what I mean by that is they're not rooms is the walls don't go completely up to the ceiling. And that is also by intent. And the reason for that is in order to ensure proper air circulation in those study rooms, we could not go all the way up to the ceiling. Because if we did so, we would have to reconfigure the HVAC system on the second floor in order to accommodate that, which would have increased the cost of the project exponentially. Instead of being approximately 80, well, it was 83,000 for 3 rooms. We added a 4th room, so it bumped it to about 120 or something thereabouts. It would have been much more significant than that. And frankly, we wouldn't have been able to do it. And so consequently, since those rooms are not self-contained, individuals who utilize those spaces are still subject to the indoor mask mandate by the governor, along with everyone else. So yes, we recognize that those spaces are not enclosed, but there is a legitimate reason for that. And unfortunately, adding any additional sound barriers on the top of that space would defeat the purpose of what I just described. And as far as sound insulation, I suppose we could look into, I mean, we can explore with facilities the possibility of adding some sound insulation between the walls, which may help to reduce the noise between the study rooms. There's already the back wall, which already provides sufficient insulation, but then the front of the rooms is glass, which doesn't insulate very well. So I'm not sure how much additional insulation or sound dampening insulating the walls separating the study rooms on the side would do, but that's something we could certainly explore with our facilities division.
Well, as an audiophile, I can tell you it would be very expensive, and given the physical corners of the room, very unlikely that you could do anything meaningful, even with spending a lot of money. But we expected that because you had explained that to us before. Kathleen?
Yes. Is there any notification or information by those rooms? I think it might be a good idea to just put a notice like, why cubes? And then you can go do a brief explanation of why they don't go all the way to the top. That might be helpful in avoiding, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of comments about this.
Yeah, point well taken. That's something that the task force responsible for those spaces has begun discussing. So we'll make sure to underscore that with them.
And Glenn, I forgot if you mentioned this, but outside the doors are iPads attached to the outside of the rooms where people can actually schedule the room right there.
I'm sorry, John, I'm sorry, what was is that a comment or a question?
Just a comment that people could schedule the rooms right in the library on those iPads.
Yes.
And you may have mentioned that if I didn't remember you saying it.
It was last time.
What, Andrew?
He mentioned it last time when we were discussing how the study cubes worked. I thought it was really cool at the time. I'm glad that it happened.
Okay, we have just a few minutes left. And I'd like to allow a little bit of time for planning the next few meetings. And I know I brought this up a couple months ago. So there's a few things you can look at. Andrew, I'll actually let you lead this discussion. And I'll just throw out a couple of ideas. One being the formation of committees is something you might want to look at in January. We discussed some of the ideas for committees that you can have. Ongoing education, evaluation, and I'm going to pass on before the month is out the materials that I got through the project that we had access to through the state library, just to make sure everybody has that. We have some people who I think are new since we were given access to that. Also, you'll have the Safe Child policy to look at, and the budget cycle. So, Andrew, I'll turn it over to you for a couple of minutes to bat around some ideas.
Well, I think those are all good things to discuss, John. I'll admit I hadn't really thought of the schedule going forward. So, yeah, I think we'll follow a lot of what you've put together for your agendas so far as going through all of the different discussions. What did you have in mind for other things to discuss?
I think you're right. It was almost unfair of me because you certainly didn't come into this meeting knowing that you were going to be elected chair. And so you weren't prepared with ideas. And I do not remember everything I threw out before. I hope somebody does. Otherwise, they're gone for good. But I think board education would be one. You always want to be looking at topics. We want to make sure that everybody gets familiarized with the behind the scenes aspects of the library. I still don't think the tours have happened, but I know Kristin has been trying to make that happen. You're muted, Kristin.
I was just saying that you're correct. They have not happened. Yeah. Okay.
So that's, keep an eye on that. Make sure that everybody gets up to speed as far as all of that goes. For the new members and newer members, that would include Mei. I think you probably want to have some introduction to what WCCLS is and how it works. Another thing that I really hope the board will revive this year, even if you have to do it by Zoom, and I think we all definitely hope you do not, is the joint meetings with the management team of the library, the teen council, the new friends board, and the foundation board. So, I mean, that's something that we've done in the spring in past years. It's, I think, a really good time to do it. Probably after the board's presentation to the council, if that were to happen this coming year. One other thing along those lines, and I think I've lost it again.
I have some notes that I took the last time that we had this conversation. I can read my notes.
Oh, please.
So I said, December meeting, what do we want to do next year? How has this helped you? How often have you shared information and learned at these meetings? What kind of information would be more helpful? How are you involved in other community activities? Do you want to be involved in more? What can we do to help the library? Is some fundamental questions that I have written down as is beginning.
Those are all things you can explore. I mean, there's so much to do, so much to know. And one thing I hope all of you will consider, as well as subcommittees, is trying to be at least slightly active in your NAC. Does everybody know what a NAC is? I guess I should ask that. Yes, good. You know, if you can go once or twice a year, it's easier now. If your NAC is holding its meetings on Zoom, you don't have to leave the house to go. You know, you can have your dinner during the meeting, whatever. Play solitaire on your computer if it gets boring. Glenn?
Yeah, just John, when you're at a good stopping point, I'd just like to make a comment before we end the meeting, if I could.
Go ahead. Right now is good. Maybe
Okay.
I'll remember the other thing I forgot.
Okay, I just want to take this opportunity to thank our outgoing members. John is our chair, Kathleen is our vice chair, and Brad, former vice chair. And Brad, did you also serve in another officer capacity besides the vice chair?
No, vice chair.
Okay.
That's what I remember anyway.
Thank you all for your service. We greatly appreciate it, all your contributions that you've made to this board. On behalf of the library, we're really grateful and appreciative of your service to the library and to the community. So thanks to each and every one of you. You will be missed. And we hope that said you will not be a stranger to the library now that you know the way.
Yeah, you're not going to keep me out that easily.
Nor are we going to try.
No. Okay, thank you.
On continuation with Glenn, I also want to thank John for his wonderful service as a chair, as a member. He has pointed out everything very particular and detailed in whatever the conversation we had, and very sharing the knowledge and resources with us for the past few years. It's been a role model for him, for me. I just want to give for your service and for the knowledge you have provided so far. And I want to thank Brad also. So we, since we are in a Zoom, but before we were like every meeting to meet, and it was a good one, though I miss it now. Thank you for being with me and being patient with all my conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You're too kind. And this webcam makes me look red enough already. I don't need to be blushing this much on top of that. I want to thank all of you as well. It's just been an honor to serve with you. It's an education. It's, you know, it's like going back to college serving on a board like this, and it's fun. And I hope you all appreciate it. I really hope you get to meet in person again this coming meeting.
And also, I want to talk about Cathy. She was very like her presentation for the library and the urban library, how it is still struggling, was a very informative, and the connection with her for the library was awesome. As a vice chairman, she has done a great job. I don't know whether I am going to continue the same footprint or not. I'm so scared of after.
No, it's gonna be great. I'm so excited for you. I think this is gonna be really cool.
Thank you for your service, Cathy.
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
I didn't know that you were going to be here the last, so I didn't prepare, but I could have noted all your presentation this year and made a note of it, because a lot of things you have shared with us.
I'll send them to you and you can put your name on them.
We can keep it as an agenda for the meetings. Or to look back things that we want to.
You can have an honorary Cyrano type role.
I can. I'll be passing you notes underneath the balcony.
Anybody else have anything you want to say quickly before we adjourn? Okay, Brad.
Oh, yeah, I'll just say I really enjoyed everyone, and my time on the board is a good experience.
Good. Thanks, Brad, and thank you so much for your service too. And great. You had unique contributions to make and very much appreciated them. So on that note, I want to wish all of you who celebrate holidays this month, or I should say holidays this month that haven't already happened, wish you very happy holidays, and thank you and good night.
Good, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays.
Congratulations.